Author Presentation Assignment on Charles Dickens by Jim Kaufman, Granite State College. The guidelines of this assignment were to explore the life of Charles Dickens in the context of the time period in which he lived and the contemporary events that shaped his writings and were a major influence on the topic of his writings. Charles Dickens was born in Portsmouth, England, on February 7, 1812. Throughout his life, Dickens was a British novelist, a journalist writing for numerous publications including newspapers, an editor, an illustrator of not only his own works, but also the works of other authors, as well as a social commentator. Dickens is considered one of the most important and influential writers of the 19th century. The writings of Dickens focused on the abuses of the lower class, particularly in the age of capitalism, and were instrumental in bringing about social change in England at the time. Dickens died on 9 June 1870 in Kent, United Kingdom. Charles Dickens wasn't just the author of numerous novels. In addition to his books, he also wrote for various publications, drew illustrations for both himself and other authors, and used his position to provide commentary on the society he lived in. In particular, many of the works by Dickens focus on social criticism, such as issues faced by poor families, and how the lower class has been used and abused by capitalism and businesses who only cared about making money. London during Victorian times was both a booming and vibrant city, as well as a slum, with some of the worst conditions that a person could ever imagine. Capitalism at the time was making people very rich. Businesses were booming. The development of better means of transportation throughout the area, particularly railroads, meant that people and goods could travel to much farther distances much more cheaply than before. This meant that goods and services could also be sold much cheaper. However, life was not all rosy in London during the Victorian era. During the 19th century, the population of London grew so fast that the basic needs of the population, including food, medical care, and sanitation, could not be met. The city air was polluted due to the overuse of coal for heating and cooking, and the lack of proper sewer systems caused many diseases to flourish. Working conditions for the poor were terrible. Deaths and injuries occurred daily. Some poor people were required to work 7 days a week for up to 16 hours a day. In 19th century London, there were many poor orphans living in the city. They were all trying to survive on the streets, using their street marts to earn, or otherwise creatively obtain, food and shelter. Dickens was one of those orphans, and he frequently uses these topics in his writings. During the Victorian era, the populace did not have the opportunities that we have for entertainment, such as YouTube, Netflix, and the internet. However, that didn't mean they were idle. Many people enjoyed reading literature, including Charles Dickens, Jane Austen, and Oscar Wilde, and many forms of poetry. Those who could afford it would visit seaside resorts, particularly with the advances in railroads. They also enjoyed playing outdoor games such as croquet, tennis, and others. Many men joined social and dining clubs, which were off limits to women. The populace also enjoyed gambling and card games, including going to casinos. They also attended concerts, not rock concerts. They had orchestras then, as well as live theater. Religion was alive and well during the Victorian era, although towards the end of the era it was on a decline. Victorian era England was deeply religious. A vast majority of the people were Christian, or Judeo-Christian. Religion was enmeshed in daily lives. Many people read the Bible daily and attended church at least once or twice each week. However, religion was gradually being undermined and replaced by scientific progress, particularly with the science of Charles Darwin. Charles Dickens was nominally a Christian. That was a requirement to avoid social ostracism during the time. However, he was outspoken in his dislike of organized religion, particularly the Roman Catholic Church. Life and times in Victorian London were a major influence on Dickens's writing. The experiences that his family went through, their poverty, the lack of sufficient food to feed the family living in a prison cell when his father was unable to pay a debt, and seeing how rich business people used and abused the poor was a major influence and a major focus of Dickens's writings. However, Dickens was quick to recognize that the hardships he endured as a child were not worthless. In later years, Dickens wrote, "I do not write resentfully or angrily, for I know how all these things have worked together to make me what I am."